This is from Tim Bob Diddy. Tim, thank you for sharing this. And I like your name, Tim Bob Diddy. So Tim Bob Diddy shares this with me. This takes us to Oakland, California, the northern part of the state, which, by the way, Oakland, California, they decriminalize shrooms and they ban facial recognition software. Pretty cool, huh? Oakland, California, decriminalize shrooms, ban facial recognition software. I got to be honest, though, guys. I think they could have compromised. Here's what I think they could have done. I think they could have done this. They could have said, okay, police, you can use facial recognition software, but only if you're on shrooms. That would have been, I think that would have been a great compromise. Like, who are you looking for in this database, officer? I'm looking for a Caucasian male with a melted face and green horns. That would have been interesting, right? Anyway, all right, so check this out. Boom, there's an ad. You're welcome. So an Oakland councilwoman wants to put homeless on a cruise ship, but the port is not on board. Huh? Play on words there. Did you see that? They're not on board? Huh? All right. I guess they said this idea can walk the plank. Come on. All right, so Oakland City Council President Rebecca Kaplan wants to bring a cruise ship to the city's port to house up to 1,000 homeless people, an idea officials at the Port of Oakland called untenable. At Tuesday's council meeting, Kaplan told council members she has been contacted by cruise ship companies about providing a ship for emergency housing. Homelessness has spiked in Oakland in the past 2 years, with an increase in the number of unsheltered people from 1,900 to 3,200. Wow. That is quite an increase. That is quite an increase. So they're saying that if they use this cruise ship, they can get up to 1,000. They can get 1,000 housing units overnight. So, you know, something like this, I kind of have a mixed response to, and I think that's sort of, you know, the way most folks would kind of dissect this. On one hand, we have to do something about how, obviously we have to do something about housing. And I think it's a good thing to look at all the resources we have available to us. I like the idea of different types of housing, of alternative forms of housing. And if this cruise ship is just a big ship that's not really being utilized at all, why not use it for something good? I see that side of it, and that makes a lot of sense. So it's like, okay, that's a cool thing. They're thinking outside of the box. They're thinking outside of the ship even to do something about homelessness. All right, so that's one side of it, and I certainly see that side. The other side of it is like, okay, well, we have a huge homeless crisis in our entire country. Certainly not every town has a random cruise ship laying around. This is not a permanent, sustainable solution for homelessness. Instead, we have to look at what's going on in our community. Why is there not affordable housing? Well, because the housing market is just running rampant. And there are no protections for people whatsoever. Another reason is because wages are being disseminated. They're being destroyed. So people cannot afford to live. 44% of homeless people have a job. 44%, nearly half of all homeless people are employed. And a lot of them are employed full time, or they're underemployed at the very least. They're trying to work full time, but they can't. So, you know, that's another thing. That's another piece of this. And just being like, hey, we have a cruise ship. And by the way, the people do need to pay. They need to pay based on their income is how they need to pay to live on the cruise ship. So, you know, I think we need to take more steps to address homelessness. We can't just be like, hey, here's a cruise ship. We knocked that number down. There needs to be more steps need to be taken in every community to do something about our housing crisis in this country. And if we all did something in our municipalities, well, then we could be looking at a different country, right? So there's that perspective of it. The other perspective, of course, hey, let's utilize every resource we can to try to help combat this thing. And if there's an underutilized resource that is a big cruise ship that you can house people, let's do it. So I get that too. You know, it kind of both make sense. Hopefully this isn't like, hey, here's a ship, we solved it. Hopefully this is like, hey, here's a temporary thing that's going to help a little bit. And here's what we need to continue to do so that we don't need to put homeless people on a cruise ship, so that everybody can have proper housing. And housing is a human right. I repeat, housing is a human right. Housing, totally for sure, a human right. And that's what we need to get to. So, I applaud thinking outside of the box. I think that's important, but let's not think this is a long-term solution because it really isn't. So I get that, but I do applaud this person for thinking outside the box, trying to do something, and I do think that alternative forms of housing. I mean, it definitely has its place because we have issues of space. So I like whenever like there's these mini houses that we're doing. I think that's kind of cool. Um, you know, so interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Tim Bob. I appreciate it. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make